Hello, I'm Donna Skell, along with my co-host, Tiffany Ross. Welcome to A Time to Dream. Time to Dream is brought to you by Roaring Lambs Ministry, a ministry that wants to help you tell your story of what God's done in your life. And we're so excited about today's guest. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever gone through a season when it felt like one bad thing after another kept coming your way? Or maybe that's the season you're in right now, one of pain, discouragement, confusion. Understandably, you may be tempted right now to give up, but don't do that. We believe that your story of pain, loss, will end in ultimate victory and will give you a renewed sense of determination. And that's the story of our guest today. So, Time to Dream welcomes Susan Benjamin. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
And Susan is the founder and director of CHIX, that's C-H-I-X, CHIX Ministries. She's also an ordained minister who has led varied groups for over 30 years. Her passion is to educate, equip, and empower women to form encouraging and meaningful communities with Jesus as the foundation. Susan also provides a home which ministers to women in need of restoration within the spirit, mind, and body. And last but not least, Susan has been blessed with 3 children and 5 grandchildren. And it's going to be a blessing to hear her story. So we love to start at the beginning, Susan. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood, and how life started for you.
Well, I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and I had 4 siblings, 2 sisters and 2 brothers, and my mother and an abusive alcoholic stepfather. And we didn't have spiritual upbringing, so there was no Bible, there was no praying, there was no even just sharing love with each other because of that. And that forced us to be a broken home and to go to foster care. And so the family was broken and put into the foster system. And that's where I found myself.
Yes, you said a mouthful. You really did. And so I want our listeners to catch up. Here you were in an abusive situation, alcoholic dad, and I don't know what role mom played, if she just tried to stay out of the way and nurtured you kids as best she could. But what ultimately happened where it got so bad that you and your siblings had to go into foster care? What did that look like? And you were only 10 years old, right? Wow.
Well, there was a lot of physical abuse, and there was just the mental abuse and the physical abuse, and then there was sexual abuse that was involved. And then it just got to the point where people began to notice, things began to show, and it was time.
Yeah. So how frightening that must have been. You're 10 years old and you were separated from your brothers and sister, and so they all went to different foster homes. So you were really alone at 10 years old in a new environment. What did that feel like, or what did that look like?
Well, I think that was the first time that I really felt abandonment. I really felt what it was like to have no one and to feel all alone. And that's when I began to search, I believe, for something. And I wasn't sure what, but I believe I was searching, and for the most part, for love.
And where was God at this point in your life? Did you even have him to call out to as a refuge? Was he part of your life at all?
Well, that's interesting, because I have always felt I've had a relationship with God, because I always spoke to him. I just didn't really know of him.
Right.
And I always did that as just a little girl. And so going into foster care was actually the first time that I was introduced to Jesus through a Bible study. Back in the day, we used to do the vocational Bible study.
Yes.
And so I took the little bus and went, and I gave my life to Jesus. And at that point, I realized, I think I know who I've been talking to.
Yes.
And it began that journey and that relationship with him at that point, I believe.
And you know, I'm so glad that the Lord introduced himself like that to you, even though you were talking to someone, you just might not have been sure who,
Right.
you know, at that time, because I'm sure he did provide some comfort for you in
Yes.
such a scary situation.
Yes.
But we've had other stories of people going through foster care, and I don't know of many who say it was a great experience. I would love to do it all over again. And so here you were now at 15,
Mm-hmm.
and probably didn't have the best experience and said, I want out. So tell us about that time in your life.
Correct. So the hardest part for me in the foster care system was accepting that they were more or less my parents and that they were my family. And I just was still trying to figure it all out, and I just was not able to put those pieces together. I just felt like I needed to run. I needed to run and look again for answers. And so I ran to my high school boyfriend who was in California, and I followed him out there, and that's when things really began.
All the way from Pennsylvania out to California?
Yes,
Wow.
I took a bus and went to California on my own.
So what happened when you caught up with him?
Well, sadly, I moved in with him, and I lived with him for 8 years. And at the end of those 8 years, I began to realize that I have done nothing but live in a situation of abuse again, because he was mentally and emotionally abusive, but began to drink and do drugs, which took him into physical abusement. So then I realized I'm right back where I was. And so I was desperate, and I ran on another search, as we all do when we're lost. And I was running, and I ran into another relationship with a man, and at that point thought I found true love. And it really was a sense of love, but it was not true love. But I became pregnant, and I had my daughter, and it was at that time he surprised me with the news that he was secretly drinking, and that he was actually an alcoholic, and that he'd been hiding it from me. And I realized that, again, I will not raise my daughter in this situation. So I ran again.
I have a question for you, backing up with your high school sweetheart.
Mhm.
And you left Pennsylvania to go to California and join him, and then here he got caught up with alcohol and drugs. Did you get wrapped up in that too at that time? Was that introduced to you in your life where it became an addiction at all for you?
No, not really so much at that time. I think alcohol was something I knew I just wanted to stay as far away from as I could. Not to say later, I did begin to drink some, but I realized that was not my way out. That was not my answer. And the same with drugs. Same thing. I did do some, but I knew that was not my answer.
Right.
And so again, I kept running back to that voice, and to that still small voice, that peace that I knew to follow. And it was the voice of God in my relationship with him that I believe that kept drawing me back to the truth of who I was and where I was to go and what I was to do and not do.
You had said something before we started taping that is so true, and I think our listeners need to hear it as well, that God is faithful. God's been faithful in your life. And I can see that even in the drugs and alcohol, that yeah, you might have dabbled in it, but he was that buffer to say, no, this is not for you, you know,
Yes.
that protection.
Yes.
And so it didn't work out with the man that you thought would be your true love. You know, he was an alcoholic. You have your daughter now, and you meet a man, and you stayed with him for 30 years. Now, I hope that a good portion of those years were happy for you, but
Yes.
would you take us back to how you met him and how that all played out?
Well, so when I began to run that time, my life began to take some type of a form of, obviously, I'm a mother now, and I need to think wisely, and I need to try to think about her. And I just started to ask God, you know, Lord, I need someone in my life that can help us and be with us, that I could trust, that I could put my my heart and my life into. And so I met my husband of 30 years, and it was an amazing time. I met him. He was in the military, and so it was truly a love of my life. It truly was a time that I felt God showed up, and this is it. Life is wonderful. I'll never go back again. I'll never have that kind of disappointments or discouragements or separation or any of that again. But that was not true. But I did have many happy times. I had 2 more children, my sons, which I love and adore. They're amazing men, and my daughter, who is a woman of God. And so, yes, we had many years of travel and just living the family lifestyle. And
then what?
And then it came to a point where God was calling me to continue to build my life upon the rock, which is Him, and to move into ministry of helping more and more women to know who God was. And I began to pour my life into God, into the vision and the purpose and of God I felt at that time in my life. And I just saw that I kind of was going in one direction, and my husband was not really there in that with me, the way that I felt that I wanted or needed him. And so things just led to a divorce, sadly, divorce. And he made it very clear that he was not going to follow the way that I was going, and he didn't have an interest in doing what I was doing, and that he didn't believe the way I believed. And so, sadly, the divorce happened after 30 years.
Yeah, that had to be very sad for you. 30 years is a long time. You're married to this man, you have 2 beautiful children by him, and life seems sweet, and you're traveling and doing some things, and then God just really impresses upon you what He's called you for.
Yes.
And your partner has no interest in that and really doesn't have the faith that God had developed in you. And so you really became unequally yoked, where you wanted to pursue Jesus and you wanted all of Him and you wanted Him to have all of you, but your husband wasn't of the same faith. And so it split up. That had to be a hard time. I know that you went through some additional hard times at that point in your life. There was several losses. Tell us more about that.
Mm-hmm. So after divorce, I felt like my life was obviously spiraling out of control once again, of where am I going to go, what am I going to do. where, how do you start life over again?
Right.
And so there was a lot of disappointments and all of that, and feeling that abandonment again, and all. And I thought, this surely is it for my life. I really didn't have much hope, but what I did realize was it wasn't over. I got a phone call from my sister. She had informed me that she had cancer, and this was my youngest sister. My older sister, several years before, had passed away with cancer. So now my younger sister is telling me she has cancer, and so that was just horrific in itself, and she passed away. Shortly then, my mother informed me, all within a year, my mother informs me that she has cancer. And shortly after Mother's Day, my mom passes away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was incredible, intense pain and sorrow. But then I received another call, and that was my aunt calling me, and she was like my real mother growing up, and she had cancer, and she also passed away just a few months after. And so it was very, very trying, very hard and difficult, but God,
Right. Right.
but God, He was with me, and He carried me, even though I felt I could not walk alone. He
Yes.
carried me a lot of that way through.
Susan, is there any moment in particular that you can speak to where you knew that you knew that you knew that He was carrying you, where He was speaking to you in the depth of that pain, in that dark valley?
Yes, I would say that as I cried out to Him, and I began to deeply dig into the Word of God, and the Word made it very clear to me, as Jesus says, He is the Word, He is the bread of life, and He began to reveal to me that He was my answer, He was my source. There was no other God, there was no other way, that He was all that I needed. And I knew then that my trust had to be completely in Him. And I believe that I encouraged myself in a sense, as David did.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to rise up, and I knew with the peace of God that was in me, and the joy in that conversation, in a sense, that I was having with Him, that He was real, that He was alive, and He was going to see me to the end. He was going to see me through this. So I did begin to have some hope in that, but I needed more.
And He knew the plans that He had for you.
Yes.
And so tell us about Chicks Ministry. It's an interesting name.
Yes,
And,
it is.
we told the audience a little bit about it in the very beginning with your introduction, but what gave you the heart to want to start that?
Well, I'd like to just roll back
Yeah, sure.
just a second here, because I do want to make point that my daughter, without her, I would not. I know I had to have God, but I realized that without my daughter, I would not have made it physically and emotionally here, because she refused to give up on me, and she refused to let me lay there and to be in self-pity or of any kind. She encouraged me with these scriptures, with this the life of, you will make it, you will live again, you will go to the next level in your life, Mom. It's not over. And that was the most encouraging words I could have ever heard from my daughter.
That is so good.
I just wanted to be sure that Chicks Ministry was birthed through several, but it was birthed through that knowing that this ministry of helping other women was what God put in me. Women helping women. And that's in any journey that they're on. That's with any life that they're going through. And that's what I knew I needed. But it was just a couple of dots that all connected to get back to what God did and how the Chicks Ministry came about. I was in Arizona with my daughter at the time. I heard the voice of the Lord, I believe in my heart, that spoke to me and said, you're going back to Texas. Texas is where I was for 30 years with my husband, and then divorced. I did not want to go back to Texas.
Yeah.
And so God said Texas. I didn't know where in Texas, but I was going to Texas. So out of faith, I packed my car, I sold my things, and I told everyone, I'm going to Texas. Well, I have a little dog named Bo, and he's a Pomeranian, and I had this moment, where would I put him? I don't know where I'm going. I may need a place for him. So I decided at that time to call a dear friend of mine here in Arlington, Texas, who just began to bawl when I called her, and she answered the phone, and I said, I need to talk to you. She said, I need to talk to you. She says, you're not going to believe this. I was just laying on the floor, bawling my eyes out. God had blessed me with a house. I don't know what I'm going to do with it exactly. I don't know, but I kept hearing your name, Susan, and I kept saying, Lord, she's too busy with you and with what God, what you're doing with her life. How could she come here? I said, my dear friend, put down the phone. My things are packed. My car is already packed. Things have been done. I'm coming to Texas.
Wow.
And I knew now where I'm going. And it was to the Chick House. It was to this house, and we named it the Chick House because all these chicks kept coming, and the house looked like a chick house, and the girls kept calling it a chick house. And anyway, it just became the Chick House, the Chicks, and so the ministry was Women Helping Ministry, and the house now is more of a resource center that just continues to help women with all walks of life and to help them be healthy, whole, fitness, wellness, nutrition, self-defense, you name it, we do it there. And so that's the
How long have you
the
been
ministry.
doing that now with Chicks Ministries?
About 5 years, and we've had about 60 something, I don't know, 65, 67 girls come through the house that we've been able to help and bless, and so
That's
we're
great.
excited about that.
I want to give the website so that you can look this up. It is Chicks, CHIX, global.org. Look at the website. If you know anyone who's in between opportunities or in between homes, and I know that a lot of these girls that you've been able to help have come out of homelessness. And earlier you were sharing with us that you relate to that because there have been times in your life when you've been homeless. And
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when in between the time of being with my boyfriend, my high school boyfriend, and just looking out of desperation for love in all the wrong places, I found myself homeless and just trying to get a job but not having a job, and I began to live on the street in a sense until I met this other man and he took me in. You're homeless. And I lived in the parks, and I lived under a picnic table in the park, and so I do know and understand what does it mean not to have a place of your own and not to have a place to go, and realize that you are all alone by yourself.
That's what makes this ministry so wonderful, is you relate to these women and where they are. It's not important how they got there, but you understand what it's like to be homeless, and this home can offer them love and certainly point them to Jesus Christ.
Yes, absolutely, because that is truly the answer. Jesus is the answer, always has, always will be, and he, I know that he is your answer. And if we can't find a place that's a good fit for you, or if we are not the good fit for you, we can find a place that's a good fit for you. Because again, that is what we do, is we're there to help you in whatever state you're in, to get you to the place that you need to be in.
So as we wrap up, what would be a final thought that you want to leave with our listeners, Susan?
I would say don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't, you are stronger than that. And that you and God together will have the answers. Direction will come. Ask God, seek God, and He will give to you the direction that you need. But follow Christ, because ultimately He has all the answers you're looking for. And trust Him. Trust Him in all of His ways, because His ways are not your ways. And He will lead you to the right way. So trust God. It's not over. It's just your new beginning.
And maybe you don't know exactly how to do that. Well, it's very simple. There's no special words. You just tell God that you want to know Him personally, that you want to begin a relationship with Him, that you know that He could do a better job with your life than you can, and you want to give your life to Him. Just uttering those in your own words would allow Him to come into your life, to bring other people into your life, to point you to a place where you can come to understand His Word and His direction in your life. And we would be glad to help in any way. If you have any questions about Jesus and you want to know more, just call us. You can call us at 972-380-0123. Call us, and either Tiffany and I will be glad to talk to you more, answer any questions that you have. And again, we encourage you to go to Susan's website, Chix, CHIX, global.org. And we'd love to hear from you as well. If you want to email us, you can email us at timetodream@gmail.com. You can listen to past shows at roaringlambs.org. So I'm Donna Scale, along with my co-host Tiffany Ross. You've been listening to A Time to Dream. Look up Susan Benjamin and Chix global.org.
That's actually, Facebook is really a good place to see and know more about us.
Good.
And that's Community Chicks.
Thank
With
you.
an X.
With an X.
Yeah.
For this generation.
I love it.
Thank you for adding that. So you have a good week. Keep dreaming, and may God richly bless you.